Paul, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Thanks very much for having me, Stephanie. Appreciate it.
I'm really excited to ask you all the questions under the sun today. So I'm going to kick off the interview, first of all, by asking you to introduce yourself and Prosperent.
Of course. So, Paul Martenstyn. I've been in the legal industry for just over 25 years, coming up to 30 years now, most of which was at the UK bar, and again, most of which was with Fountain Court Chambers. It happens to be a very top-end commercial set that's part of what people like to describe as a magic circle. I then went into litigation funding for 2 years before setting up Prosperent 5 years ago. I'm a co-founder with Jamie White, so we set up Prosperent in 2020 during COVID, which is interesting. I'm sure we can discuss that in due course. But more importantly, I'm married to Charlotte and father of 2 amazing children, Max and Esme.
So what first drew you to the legal sector, and how did your early experiences help shape your career?
Yeah, it's a good question. So for me, my mum was involved in law as I was growing up. I was also inspired by some TV shows that I'm sure some of your listeners will be able to recall. So things like LA Law, even Ally McBeal, which was comical, but also just
Love Ally McBeal.
Everyone loves Ally McBeal. If no one's watched it before, I would recommend you just try and dial in on UK Gold or wherever it's hosted. But also, there was a really great BBC Two documentary. It was not a documentary, but a great program called This Life, which was around the time that I was just about to do my law degree. And because my mum was in law, and we didn't have much growing up, to be honest, and because of those programs and because of my mum's involvement in law, that I suppose piqued my interest. And it was my mum's idea for me to take a year out from doing my law degree and to get a job. And my mum, very hardworking individual. So I'm half Irish. So on the Irish side, my mum was working at 16. I'm just getting out there to earn money. And on my dad's side, I'm Sri Lankan. So quite an unusual mix, Irish and Sri Lankan, but both cultures very much about work and really getting out there amongst it. So I took a year out from my law degree, and I got a job in barristers' chambers as a junior clerk back in 1997, and that was it. Really, I was hooked because I realised that it was a job that ticked a lot of boxes for me, but I never looked back from that. And actually, I ended up I didn't do my law degree in the end because I ended up getting funded by my CEO at which was a chambers called Hardwick, which has now become Gatehouse, and Buxton saw something in me and said, look, we'll sponsor you to do a marketing qualification whilst you're working. And that was for me, being able to work and then someone sponsoring me to get my qualifications was fantastic. So I didn't look back from there.
I think that's such an incredible journey. I think that when you're starting off anything, really, you have perhaps a preconception of how you expect things to go and the route that you want to take to get you to A, B, and C. But then when life throws different things at you and different opportunities present themselves to you, to have such an open mind and just kind of go with it, knowing that this may be a better path to take or may offer you different life experiences. I just love how life does that. You thought you were going to go to university, or you did go to university, going to do your law degree and take you to wherever it is that you were going to go. Just by, try your mother, suggesting that you do a year work experience, it has led to you to where you are today. And yeah, I just love stories like that.
No, it's good, and it's a good example of always listen to your mum, always listen to your mother,
always listen to your mum. I'm going to tell my mum not to listen to this one just so she doesn't hold that against me. But yeah, it's true.
No, absolutely.
So you spent a decade at Fountain Court Chambers, where I understand you led one of the bar's most impactful commercial strategies. So what was this strategy, and what were some of the key lessons or turning points during that time?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. So during my period up to getting to Fountain Court in 2008, I'd worked at some sets where, not sort of far up the food chain in terms of where Fountain Court were, but having to hustle for work. I suppose having to really not be complacent when it came to the phone ringing, instructions coming through. And I was thrown in the deep end when I was 24, when I was at Hardwick. I was, and it obviously wouldn't happen nowadays, but back then, I was thrown in, and I remember the senior clerk at the time saying to me, "Look, Paul, you've got a commercial team. You just go and run with it." And I was like, "Okay, I'm 24 years old. I'm either going to sink or swim here." I looked at it as a fantastic opportunity. So things like practice management, I started to, because I was doing the qualification on the side, I started to impose some of those skills, some of that learning in my day-to-day career, which was fantastic to be able to do both of them at the same time. It was challenging because I was having to do a lot of studying outside of what was a very demanding role. But at 24 years old, what an opportunity. I don't know if he did that because he believed in me or because he just wanted to edge it off on me. I don't know. But it certainly molded me and gave me huge exposure. So by the time I reached 30, I got the attention of Fountain Court. And so when I went into Fountain Court, I went in with a huge amount of experience. At that time, I'd had a CIM qualification. The IBC invited me to talk at one of the IBC conferences to really educate clerks about the importance of getting a CIM qualification, the impact it has on your daily role. Because obviously sales, BD, marketing very much drives what a modern clerk should do. And I ended up publishing a lot of articles during that period. I think probably 6 or 7, which ended up getting quite a bit of attention in the legal press. So when I went into Fountain Court, I went in very confident. Even though I hadn't been part of the Magic Circle, I felt Fountain Court needed that fresh approach. It got quite stale. And it's fair to say, at that point, it was losing a lot of pace and traction with other Magic Circle sets. So we had to put together, and Alex Taylor, who to this day is still my mentor, Alex brought me and gave me that chance. But, he gave me that chance for a reason. So we had to put together a very robust first 5-year strategy, which included doing something called a perception survey, which at the time was unheard of back in 2008, asking clients for their feedback on why perhaps they'd gone missing over a period of time, but also analyzing the data and looking at why certain law firms had gone missing, and assumptions were being made and just saying, the way it works is the phone will just start ringing again. And it's just like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to make the phone ring. We need to understand what the issues are, where the gaps are, and we need to start plugging them. So we ran a perception survey as a starting point, and that really formed what was a incredible first initial 5 years, which was a big challenge because we had to take what was a very successful set, but for various reasons, and a lot of it was due to members going on the bench, other sets of chambers being a lot more robust when it came to sort of BD. It required a lot of courage, and they believed in Alex, they believed in myself, they believed in some incredible clerks in the clerking team, and we drove it forward. But Alex and I were described as the best double acting clerking, or I can't remember what the phrase was. And I know who said that. It was a head of disputes, and that was very kind of him to say it. But I think we ended up going on, I don't know how many thousands of meetings during that first 5 years to start to try and recover some of the relationships that had just basically gone. So yeah, it was that perception survey was a starting point.
I think that's phenomenal. Just a couple of things. So you said you were 24 years old when you were at Hardwick, and you were presented with this opportunity to, run with this project that this person had given you. And whether or not he gave it to you just because, he couldn't cope with it himself at the time, or whether he really saw something in you, I reckon it was the latter. But your can-do attitude and saying yes to opportunities, I think that is so crucial to have. He could have seen something in you and you not felt quite ready for it, but instead you decided to take the opportunity and make it into your own. And I think that is such a wonderful attitude to have. I think that saying yes to every opportunity that presents itself to you like that is always the best thing to do, even if you don't feel quite ready for it yet. Because if you don't push yourself, you will never grow. And I just think that growth is very important. And you applied all these growth strategies to Fountain Court Chambers to push this impactful strategy. And it's paid off. And from my work at Radcliffe Chambers, where I was exposed to the clerk's room whilst I was in my marketing role, I could really see what a crucial role the clerks play into driving the business. Because, as you were saying, a barrister chambers is a business. You've got to speak to one another. You've got to go out there. You've got to see what your clients are saying. You've got to, understand what is going on in the market. And I think that you were very clever to cotton on to that so early and not only understand that, but then to implement a strategy through across the entire team that obviously worked so well. So I think that, you know, your vision is very clear and how you've implemented it is very impressive.
Thank you very much. It was a very exciting time. As I say, I don't know if I would be given the opportunity now. I don't think I probably would. I think times are very different now. But at the end of the day, you either grab it with both hands and run with it, or you don't. So yeah, I'm glad I've done to it.
So in 2020, you co-founded Prosperent.
Yes.
What inspired you to leave clerking and to launch a strategic consulting firm?
So it's interesting. So I got to sort of 2018. So that was the second 5-year plan that Alex and I had sort of put together. And it was interesting because I think at that point I was very comfortable, and I was on an IBA trip to Washington. I was with a couple of the Silks from Fountain as well that were with me, and we, were having a very successful trip. But I bumped into the then owner of a litigation fund. I was at their party in Washington, and I remember I ended up introducing him to lots of different people in the room, and he said to me, Paul, like everyone's elevating towards you and you're introducing me to all these people. Why are you doing that? I said, because it's your party as host. I feel it right. And he just said, you need to come work for me. I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm very happy where I am. But interestingly, because I would never have joined another set, and still to this day, Fountain Courts very much I feel like is my family. I'm still very much in touch with some of the members. Alex and I saw each other last weekend. I see some of the Clarking team often, so that I count them as very much still family. So I think that when I was in Washington, and I ended up meeting this owner of this fund, he did pique my interest because I'd got to a point where after 20 plus years of being at the bar, I wanted to challenge myself. I started to feel like I was getting a bit complacent and it was becoming quite samey. And I could have easily just sat there and I would still be there now and very comfortable position, but I just felt I owed it to myself to try and do something different. And so when the owner of this fund offered me a job as managing director, which then became Fortress, I spent between 2018 and 2020 as an MD at what was essentially the power player in litigation funding. But that gave me an incredible insight into a different end of the market in terms of the economics of cases, dealing with experts, dealing with really going underneath budgets, understanding proportionality, but also understanding investment strategies for what was essentially a New York hedge fund. So that was incredible. But that 2 years also gave me the confidence. So Jamie White, who's my co-founder, Jamie was the one that launched our perception survey at Fountain Court in 2008. So Jamie is a McKinsey trained strategist. When we had the first meeting, we got introduced to him in 2008 by someone from Olswang, great law firm that's now part of what is CMS. We had the first meeting with Jamie in 2008 and Alex and I both looked at each other and I remember thinking that was, when you meet someone, you think, my God, like that was impressive. I mean, he looks at things very differently. And, it just so happened that he was working with A&O at the time with David Morley. He was he'd worked with Travis Smith and Slaughters. So he's, very top of his game, as I say, McKinsey trained. But we connected. And then I remember we've always been very close, and obviously we instructed him when we were at Fountain Court. His consultancy at the time was called Blackbridge, and so we always stayed in touch. We're very close. I always would go to him for advice and vice versa. So when we set up our business in 2020, we sort of knew in that first meeting 13 years before that we would always work together, and so we co-founded Prosperent in 2020 during COVID because at that point in time, I felt like having gone into litigation funding post my 20 years at the bar, that had rounded off my knowledge and it gave me the confidence to really set up my own business. Now, Jamie had already run a consultancy. He's always run a consultancy throughout his whole career. He gave me the confidence as well. Look, we can do this. Let's create a new entity, 50-50. It required a leap of faith because I was sort of not institutionalized, but you're very comfortable getting paid very well by either a New York hedge fund or by a Magic Circle set of chambers. I've got responsibilities. I've got a young family, but there was this moment where, and it all credit to my family, but I owed it to myself to be my own boss, and that's always been my dream to be my own boss. So yeah, in 2020 during COVID, we set up Prosperant.
Was it difficult to do during COVID?
Yes, it was difficult. The one thing I would say about COVID though was it allowed you to have thinking time, and I can't really put a higher. I mean, in terms of what we needed, both of us at that point, we needed thinking time and space to really identify exactly what we wanted to do. And so that period, ironically, was a good period for us to do it because we could take a step back. The travel wasn't there anymore, so we weren't traveling and hustling into London to and from.
Yeah.
There weren't any client meetings. There weren't any dinners and lunches or breakfasts or whatever. So we had time to think. And so it was a great time to do it.
This leads quite well into my next question. So when you were thinking, what was the vision behind the firm's inception?
So I think that we wanted to, our toolkit's quite different. Jamie is, as I say, leading strategist, has worked with the world's best lawyers, whether it's private practice, US law firms, barristers, whatever it might be. So that strategic piece was obvious. And obviously, because of my strategic background with the bar, but also in funding, meant that us combined, that was a very powerful combination. So strategy is really at the heart of what we do, but we try to work with the best, but not just in the UK, but very much overseas. And ironically, our first few mandates were, Hong Kong, Middle East, the US. There was one point where we were thinking, is there any chance we could get a mandate in the UK? And that was principally down to the fact that, we've got a, and people say this, and I hate to use the phrase, but we have a world-class network. I mean, we do. We've got an incredible following across all jurisdictions. So, which is fantastic, but that's not happened by chance.
So Prosperent has experienced notable growth and a global footprint since 2020. How would you describe its business model and the unique value it brings to its clients in the legal sector and litigation finance sectors?
Yeah, I would say so. The model is quite simple. So there are three buckets really. The first one is strategy. So what does that mean? For example, at the moment, we're helping a range of, it's either chambers, either law firms, one fund or credit funds, one expert. And so strategy could mean lots of different things. So it could be operational, it could be talent, it could be growth capital, it could be potentially M&A. And that's one of our biggest growth areas. It's like, it could be because of what's going on in the economy right now, there are some law firms that are struggling. So we'll get parachuted in, we'll help the management board and team really identify what is essentially at the moment, the biggest phrase is 2030. So how do we get to 2030 successfully, still living and breathing, but thriving as well? And so how do we do that? So of course, strategy is really at the heart of what we do. The second bucket is we've launched a number of boutiques around the world. Jamie has over 30, which is incredible. So he's worked on some really big ones. So he's worked on ones like Signature, litigation, Three Crowns, but together we've worked on some fantastic ones over the last, since we set up Prosperent 5 years ago. We've done litigation boutiques like we've worked on Quillon. We launched a barrister chambers in Hong Kong from scratch, which was incredible. One of our first mandates, which phenomenal legacy project. We've launched the first Middle Eastern law firm in London. So that's the second bucket. The third bucket, I would say, is law firm M&A, which is probably our biggest growth area, I would say. But what we've done, Stephanie, is we've grown the team underneath. So we've got an incredible GC, which is fantastic. Damien's been with us from the very start. We do have now a head of insight, and that's Katie Dow. Katie was the editor of Horizon at the Lawyer magazine. She was on and off at the Lawyer for 20 years. So she's our head of insight. Katie's been with us 2-3 months now. So she's launched what we call the Perspective series, which is a series on LinkedIn now, which we every 2 weeks. So that's a deep dive on what's going on in the market. Our most recent one was around private equity and what private equity is doing in law right now. And then we also have David Burgess, who was running League 500 for 20 plus years. He's one of our partners now. He's as I say, he's full time. We have Freya, who's head of client services. Charlotte's our finance accountant, and then we have a whole raft of consultants on our bench, like Susan Dunn, who is chair of ALF. Very, incredible figure in litigation funding. She and I have worked together for 20 years. I mean, it's an absolute privilege to have her on our bench.
I've met her. She's a great laugh.
Oh, she is. And then we've got, like people like Julie McCain from the US, who used to be the GC at McKinsey. And, we've got all of these incredible leaders who we can call upon depending on what the project is. So those three buckets, alongside the fact that we've got this world-class bench, even people like Tina Fordham, who is probably one of the best geopolitical analysts in the world. She works very closely and collaborates with us on projects. But again, to have her on the bench is phenomenal. And that's what we wanted to build, is a world-class bench of thought leaders where people like, whether it's a head of disputes, a Supreme Court judge in India, CEO of a litigation fund, whoever it might be, will call us and we become their trusted advisors, essentially.
You really do have a world-class network and people, on the team. And I just think that just all comes from you building up a fantastic reputation for yourself and the work, and coming together with Jamie, who is another exceptional leader, and creating this entity where you attract world-class people who also have a great reputation. I just wanted to ask you, with the mergers that you do from law firms when you set those up. Now, I understand that mergers can sometimes be a little bit tricky with different cultures. Have you ever noticed, is there a situation where you would say, no, these two law firms aren't going to be a great fit? Like, what's your train of thought behind that?
I mean, it's a great question. I mean, culture is very much at the heart of, when we look at culture immediately, I think some of the potential pitfalls around perhaps some of the M&A activity that's happened in law over the past sort of 10, 15 years in particular, the ones that have perhaps fallen over have been driven purely by economics at the start, and rather than cultural alignment. I think we come in it very differently. We look at culture immediately, alongside lots of other things. Again, we work with a guy called Andrew Roberts, who's one of our consultants, who's chair of the law firm Mergers Association, and he's done over 140 deals. So we bring a huge amount of expertise to the table. And Damien, our GC, was involved in M&A when he was in private practice. So again, I think we come at it very differently. And it's not just about the numbers work. I mean, I see some articles sometimes where it's just about, geographically and the numbers, and if you match this, and it doesn't work like that. You can't. There's a whole range of. I mean, when you're dealing with people and large amounts of people from two different cultures, you have to do that first, in my opinion. So yeah, it's a tricky one because it requires a lot of deep. But culture should be very much at the heart of those decisions that are made at the start.
Get the culture right and the numbers will follow.
Yes.
So can you share an example of how Prosperent services have helped a client overcome a major challenge or achieve significant growth?
Yeah, I mean, one of our first gigs, which is incredible, and that was down to, I think, a combination of things, but a very good referral from an industry friend, because we don't do much advertising. It's not if you know sort of situation. It's more about, we rely on the quality of our work and the quality of our network, and that's proven to be a game changer for us. Also, I think people appreciate our discretion, and we're not shouting on LinkedIn all the time. I mean, we really don't, and we do that on purpose, because I think discretion, being authentic, having integrity, and delivering things behind closed doors without shouting about it, I think clients respect that more and more actually nowadays. So the one that I would say sticks out in terms of an example is Reed Chambers in Hong Kong. We got that mandate, principally someone had read a chapter in a text. So there was a textbook called The Independent Bar, published by Global Law, Global Business. And I was invited to do that by David Barnes, who's an incredible figure he's a CEO of Atkin Chambers. And he was essentially the editor of this book. I was invited to do a chapter on practice management and BD at the bar. And I remember thinking at the time when I was invited to do it, I was the youngest person by a margin. And I remember looking around the room at the other sort of editors of the other chapters, thinking, that this is a really incredible vote of confidence by David to invite me to do it. But the barristers in Hong Kong had read that section that I'd done on practice management and BD and said, oh, we want that. Because in Hong Kong, the culture and the way the bar's driven is very different. So that's how the conversation started. And then we ended up going on this journey with 26 amazing barristers in Hong Kong on Zoom during COVID, where we built a new brand, we built a strategy, we introduced them to practice management. We had a strategy to really build out arbitration. So when COVID was over, we flew out for Hong Kong Arbitration Week, and we headlined one of the events in the new set of chambers in the new building. And I remember being there, and the whole place was packed. And within the space of 3 years, the directory said, the two principal sets of chambers in Hong Kong are Temple and DeVoe. And within 2 or 3 years, the industry was saying, well, Reed is now the third alternative in that short amount of time, which I was like, wow. I mean, I was completely blown away at how we'd all just pushed Reed so hard and so, but as a unit, and to get them so far in a short amount of time was just out. I mean, it was, Jamie and I looked at each other after Hong Kong arbitration as we were flying home. We just looked at each other and just went, yeah, that was a job well done. And I'm very, very proud of what we did there. And I know that they still talk about it to this day. I was talking to one of the members a couple of days ago, and it's still the case. Reed have just risen up in a very short amount of time. But we were there. We created that. We created the brand. We created the strategy, practice management, the way that the team now approaches client relationship management. Everything is completely different from the set they were in, which was quite an old-fashioned set. They're now in this, they've got this new vision, new journey, new brands, and very proud of that.
I mean, the Hong Kong legal market is no easy market to break into. So to be able to facilitate that, you must have such wonderful job satisfaction. And I imagine, unless you're super busy, which I guess you are, very easy to fall asleep at night knowing what a fantastic job you're doing. So since launching, Prosperent has established and managed a diverse group of law firms and chambers, as you've spoken about, worldwide, secured funding for over $2.7 billion of cases, and supported global practices in overcoming complex business challenges to drive sustained growth. What is the key to building trust and delivering results in such high stakes environments?
Yeah, great question again. I mean, I think that the ability to say no, if you can't do something, if you can't provide a service or a solution, that ability to have a quick no is really, really important, because I've seen it so often where people overtrade and overpromise and don't deliver. I think that's really, really important. I mean, I personally respect someone saying, look, Paul, I'd love to do this for you. I just haven't got the bandwidth and time right now. And I always think to myself, I love the honesty, because you could just say yes, and then in 2 weeks' time I'm chasing you, and we're all in a difficult position. So I think having a very honest and authentic relationship with your clients is important. Trust is built up not over a period of days or weeks. Trust is built up over time. And I always say to people, the best relationships are the ones that take a lot of time to develop and cultivate. The ones that take months, years to build are the ones that you want to grab onto and keep onto. The ones that you can buy at an event that you get the quick returns on are the ones that you can lose very quickly as well, because their heads will get turned at the next event, and so on and so on. I mean, I personally like the ones that, not play hard to get, but the ones that just take a little bit more time. The ones that where you have to move out of the friend zone. You move out of so sometimes you get in this position where you get into the friend zone, and you can't sort of execute that conversion from friends to business partners. I haven't got that problem. I tend to just be quite upfront, and people respect the honesty, but that's really important as well. And the thing is, I've done things for clients, whether it's been early mornings, weekends. I will always pick up the phone, and I'll always go above and beyond for people. And I think that's really counted over the years, and that's why that network is so strong.
Yeah. You're talking about the ability to say no. I'm just going to echo what you've said here. And the ability to say no when you can't do something just, helps build up your reputation, and goes back to what you were saying in my last question about, you don't need to do really any marketing because it's all word of mouth. And when you build up your reputation by being honest and doing a good job and delivering on the things that you say you're going to deliver on, I mean, this is how you win and retain business, by performing well and doing what you say you're going to do. And yes, I totally agree with you. Trust is built up over time, but it can also be lost pretty quickly as well. And I know that, if you are building trust up over 5 or 10 years, one slip up every now and again is not going to, one honest slip up anyway, is not going to ruin that. But I do think that, trust is lost very, very quickly, much quicker than the time it takes to build it up. So echo and agree with everything that you have said on that point.
Thank you.
So leadership is often described in many ways. What does leadership mean to you, and how do you embody these principles when working with your team and stakeholders?
Great question again. Common theme with your podcast, a lot of good questions. Leadership I think it's different for different people. I mean, for me, I like to lead from the front. I think transparency is really important. I think transparency can sometimes be lost. And again, honesty. I do think honesty with your team. I mean, I was very fortunate to have led a incredibly talented, a lot more talented than me, team at Fountain Court. And I remember I think they appreciated my honest approach. I think they appreciated I was happy to get sort of stuck in. But I think also listening is so important as a leader. I think there are different styles. I mean, I do a lot of reading, so I love listening to Simon Sinek. I think he's fantastic. I've got his podcast. I always listen to what he has to say. Stephen Bartlett as well. I've got a few recommendations at the end for books that I'm currently looking at, which for your listeners, I would recommend. But I think for me, leadership is the ability to be able to listen, take a step back, but also make whoever that individual is in your team feel like the only person in the room. Now, I don't think everyone has that skill, but if you can achieve that and also create a bespoke approach, depending on who the individual is, I think again is very, very important. You get the best out of people if you listen. And if you invest your time in them, it's so important, because essentially without a fully functioning team, everything's going to fall over. I think people get that wrong. I've seen a lot of preachers in the past, and I've listened so much in my career, and I've also listened to people that I just think have just got it completely wrong. So yeah, I think so at the moment, for example, Jamie and I, we've got an incredible, again, great double act. Our skills complement each other. With our team, we have regular meetings, check-in meetings every Friday. We check in. It's a really open discussion. Nothing's off the table. We want to engage. We want to inspire. We want to be inspired by them. It's a very collaborative organization. So I suppose without mentioning the word leader, you are essentially being a leader, if you know what I mean. Because again, you're leading by example.
I mean, I see nothing wrong in the word leader. Not that I'm saying that you do, but I think that people need to be led in some respect. They need guidance, and they need somebody to lead the way and shine the light for them. Because I suppose it's a team effort at the end of the day. And I suppose with a team, everybody has their part to play, but that team definitely needs a leader. And you got so much wisdom behind you, and I think that you're really personable, you've got the knowledge, and you no job seems too big. And so I think that
one of the things
your approach is wonderful.
I think one of the things that I pride myself on, if there's a difficult conversation to be had, for example, I will do it 100%. So I tend to lead when it comes to the really difficult conversations for whatever reasons. I suppose, one of the things, and you would have seen this at the bar, I think when you can deal with barristers who are essentially at the very top of their game, are trained to cross-examine at the highest level and pick faults in everything you're saying, when you're able to deal and manage, the very best of the best, any problem seems solvable. So as I say, when it comes to leadership, one of the other things I do, if it requires a difficult conversation with a client or there's an issue, I'm not one of these people to say you just have to deal with it as part of your, I will step up and take that on.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to various podcasts. Stephen Bartlett's one of them. I really love his show. But whenever he's got like entrepreneurs and CEOs and founders, a lot of them say, their job is to do all the shit that nobody else wants to do. And it's having these awkward conversations. So yeah, that's a funny point. Prosperent's head office is in London, with a second office in Dubai. What strategic importance does having a presence in the Middle East, but Dubai in particular, hold for your business?
The Middle East is really important for certainly for, I would say, well, in particular, not just the UK bar, but law firms in general, just because of the activity in terms of the investment, the economy, and I think where the market's going. I mean, I've always looked at Dubai, and in particular, so we are, in fact, our office is registered in the ADGM, which is in Abu Dhabi. But if you look at the market every single year, and especially the ADGM, I would say, it's getting more popular as a destination. I mean, even to the point where there was a very big UK case where you had two Magic Circle silks against each other in the ADGM. And I think Sir Andrew Smith was hearing that case. Again, it's a sign of where the market's going. But also, if you look at Dubai Arbitration Week, even Riyadh now, it's been going for a couple of years. I mean, the Middle East generally is a hive of opportunity because of the amount of investment that's going into the jurisdiction, the opportunities that are arising. It's certainly a place where for us, and certainly with the activity, the clients that we have, it was, I don't like using this phrase too often, but it was a no-brainer for us to have a location. But also, we're very, very fortunate that we are collaborating and we have a representative in the UAE called Sarah Malik. Sarah's one of the most high-profile lawyers in Dubai. She's got her own business called Soul International. She's got a fashion line. She's working on two of the biggest cases in Dubai at the moment, and she's an inspiration. I've been very lucky to know Sarah for 20 plus years. We sort of grew up together. I was a junior clerk, she was a junior barrister at Hardwick way back when. So the fact that we're working together now, so when I'm out in the Middle East, sometimes I'll take my family out there. We'll see her and her children, and it's a great relationship. There's lots of reasons: professional, personal, but principally professional. Again, the mandates that we have, and having launched Maysan, which is a law firm created in Kuwait but located around the Middle East, to have launched them in London, the first firm to do so 2 years ago. Again, it didn't take much convincing for us to open up.
I think it's a fantastic place to have a base. Yeah, when I was at Chambers, just before I left to start my training contract at a law firm, I could see how busy Dubai Arbitration Week was becoming. I think some of our clerks were very happy that they got to go over there as well and meet people. But yeah, you could really see what growth it's having. Tell me if I'm wrong, but you could there's people can now practice law from Saudi. Is that right? There's
I don't know if they can
opportunities to
practice.
practice it.
You need a license, but you also need to have local support as well.
Right. Okay.
It's not easy. So even things have changed in the ADGM over the past sort of 6 or so months as well in terms of what's allowed and what's not. So while there's been there's been a lot of incoming traffic for lots of reasons from the UK into Dubai in particular. In terms of law, I mean, so for example, Jamie helped launch Mantle in Dubai, which has proven to be one of very successful boutique with Matt Hayward. Jamie was part of the team that helped launch that with another company. So again, we've got a lot of experience, got a lot of traction. And yeah, I mean, Saudi, I think is going to take a bit of time. I think there's a lot of investment, there's a lot of attention there. But for me, like Abu Dhabi and Dubai are still very crucial for us, certainly in terms
Number
of our
one.
strategy anyway.
Yeah. So you have a high impact career, there's no doubting that, and have been also deeply involved in charity work, especially with Save the Children. How do you personally recharge and switch off from work, if you do?
Yeah. So I think Save the Children is probably one of my biggest success stories. So that's now, as of next month, it's 30 years, which is, I don't know where that went. I remember my first day when I signed up to them when I was 17. Yeah, it's crazy.
Do tell us more about that for sure.
I mean, it's really, it's incredible. When I think about it, it only feels like yesterday. That's how quickly time goes. I was getting off the train at Blackheath train station, and I just finished my first week in Chambers. It was after my A-levels. I was taking a year out, and I just got a job at a set, just being a junior clerk, and I was getting paid cash in hand. I mean, that's how long ago this was. And I remember getting off the train at Blackheath, feeling all proud of myself, wondering what I was going to spend the money on. And there was a Save the Children representative there with a clipboard, and she started talking to me about what the work that they did. And because of my background, broken family, the impact that had on me personally and my sisters, I think that when children are in turmoil and in need, I sort of resonate with that. And so she pitched a really good story to me. And so, but I remember I said, well, look, I've just got my first pay packet, and why don't you put me on a direct debit, and I'll give you some money right away, because I had money in my pocket. So I remember giving that first amount of money and then signing up to Save the Children. Yeah, I was 17, so that was 30 years ago. But since then, I've gone from chairing the African Advisory Board, TADS, head of arbitration at Latham, Sophie Lamb was a part of the board. Former President Mauritius was part of the board that I was chairing. I was like, oh, this is too crazy. When I was chair, we raised just over 20 million, and I ended up having to go to South Africa on an incredible journey, which probably changed my life, I'd say, just before COVID hit. And then I was invited to become global vice president. So I've got another gig with Princess Anne in November this year. But that's probably, when you talk about what inspires me the most, and when we talk about time and when you spend time with these children, you realize that there's nothing to moan about. There's always time. When people say they haven't got any time, I don't buy into that too much, because then when you realize what some people have to go through, and I've seen 7-8-year-olds in South Africa who've got 2 jobs just to support their family. They're working from early morning to late night, and these are children. And they've always got smiles on their face. And that's when I realized that, what am I moaning about? When it comes to time, I try. So this morning, I took the dogs out this morning very early. I take them out. I'm very fortunate we live in a place where there's lots of places to walk. We live in a place called Keston. So I took the dogs out this morning at 6. We went on quite a long hike this morning, but it's great headspace for me. It's great to be with the dogs. And then I just get back in time when the kids are waking up. We have breakfast together. So I will always spend time with those closest to me when I can. But at the same time, I do enjoy what I do. I love my business because it's our business. I think it's a lot different. It's very hard for me to explain to people the difference of having your own sort of, again, Prosperant now. We've trademarked it as a brand. Jamie and I have got our own personal, our journey for the business over the next 3 to 5 years to get it to 10 years. So yeah, as I'm in mid-40s now, I don't want to rest up. There's a lot of time for me to rest up post 50, but at the moment, I think 45 to 50 for me is quite a crucial point in my career.
I think that when you have your business and it's something that is your passion and you love working on it, that must energize you anyway, as you've said. And when you're combining that with early morning nature walks, spending time with family, just for me anyway, it sounds like a pretty perfect life. I mean, everybody has their ups and downs and going through stuff, but then recharging with your family and fresh air and doing the work with Save the Children, I think that recharges a person. I mean, I work, I would say, pretty long hours, but I do always make time to go to the gym in the morning, just because I suppose it gives me so much energy. And when I'm going on a run, I suppose it's like when you're walking the dogs in the morning. Sometimes I do my best thinking when I'm on a run. It's energizing. So yeah, I do think it's really important to, I suppose, not be stuck behind a desk all the time and doing other things that inspire you, even if that is what other people may count as work. I think that as human beings, we're meant to have a passion and be working towards something. Whilst I understand that lying down, meditating, which I totally get works for some people, I think it's okay to say, I want to work on this passion project now outside of my 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 job. So that's really nice to hear. So is that what motivates and inspires you? Because that was my next question, but I think you really answered it, unless you have something else tucked up your sleeve.
No. I think once Prosperant's done and Jamie and I've got it to where we need to get to, my next stage of my life is I want to dedicate all of my time to Save the Children. I dedicate a lot of time to it already, but for me, if I was free of work, that's what my next step would be, 100%. And I've got 3 books which I suppose, look, obviously, as I said at the outset of this interview, I think my children always inspire me. They're incredible human beings, and their energy, and then also I had the pleasure of walking my little sister down the aisle last week in Portugal, Hayley, and that also inspired me because Hayley's also not. I'm a big brother, I'm a godfather, but I had the opportunity to walk down the aisle, and we were walking as we got to, and she looked incredible. I mean, she's just faultless. She's an incredible human being. But as we got was making the entrance on top of this cliff in Portugal, and I looked to her, and I was welling up and in tears, and she looked to me, and she was calm, and she said, "Are you okay?" I remember thinking, God, when did this happen? When did you become this incredible human being? And I remember she was calm, and she held me, and I was like, oh my God, And I remember thinking, I think we've done okay. I think she's going to be okay. I mean, she's again, I get inspired by my family, but from a professional perspective, my three Bibles are so. What they don't teach you at Harvard Business School is really good. Mark McCormack, that's really, really good. You would have seen, I'm sure you would have seen Time Wise, how to use your time efficiently. And then the one that I know you have, Stephanie, is the Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett, which again is phenomenal. So those three, along with a book called Relentless, I'll have on sort of cycle to keep
Is that by
reminding
Tim
me.
Grover?
Yeah, Tim Grover. Yeah,
Tim,
yeah.
loved that book.
Yeah. But
very, very
I think
inspiring.
it's really important to, one of the things that I will never do is I'll never say I know it all, because I never will. I will always keep listening. I'll always keep learning. Always.
So although you say that you don't know the answer to everything and you never will, would you say though that you know how to find the answer, even if that's finding somebody to find out?
That's my speciality, yeah.
Wonderful. I'll put links to those books as well in the show notes, just for any listeners who want quick and easy access to purchasing them.
Fantastic.
So the name of this podcast is Taking Care of Business. So Paul, what does that phrase mean to you, both professionally and personally?
I think they're interlinked. Taking care of business, I'm going to keep this quite short and sweet, but I think it will resonate, I'm sure, with everyone. Taking care of business means taking care of yourself. So you've already touched upon it, Stephanie. Doing the things, whether it's the walking the dogs, playing tennis, playing paddle at the moment for everyone, or going for a run, whatever it might be, that thinking time, that ability just to take a step away and have the time to yourself will have an impact on your business, and it will help you take care of business, which is the name of this podcast. So take care of yourself. And I think everyone now understands that, because it's rammed down our throats on social media, in the press. So we all know what that means. But I think taking care of yourself, both physically, emotionally, I think will always take care of business as well.
Right. I am going to let you get on with your weekend so you can take care of business. But I just want to say thank you ever so much for joining me. I've had a really, really great time chatting to you, and it's been fantastic learning about Prosperent, how you take care of business and your career journey, because I do think it's such an exceptional one and so wonderful for people to hear about, and keep on doing fantastic things. Not that you need me to tell you that. And I'm excited to see what happens with Prosperent in the next 5 or 10 years, and then to see what incredible other things you're going to be doing with Save the Children. And also a big shout out to your sister, and congratulations to the happy couple.
Thanks very much. And Stephanie, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. And thank you for everybody for tuning in to this episode of Taking Care of Business, and we'll see you back again here next time.
Thanks a lot.